Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Graham from the School of Teacher Education at National Taiwan Normal University. Welcome to my office hours. As many of you know, May 20th, 2024 marked the beginning of a new administration in Taiwan under President Lai Ching-te. And with him, a new Minister of Education, Cheng Ying-yao. Since taking the position, Minister Zheng has made a few remarks on bilingual education that may indicate a shift in direction. In this video, I will provide my thoughts on these comments and what I think they might mean for the future of bilingual education in Taiwan. One of the first statements Minister Zheng made in May 2024 was that he intends to continue promoting the bilingual education policy, but at a slowed pace. How slow, you ask? Well, when asked by the legislator's Education and Culture Committee about whether the bilingual 2030 goals will be met by year 2030, the minister answered that it would likely take not 6, but 30 years to achieve those goals. The general reaction to this statement among people I interact with has been positive. My colleagues and I have felt that the implementation of bilingual education has been going at an unsustainable pace in Taiwan. All too often, schools have been forcing unwilling and untrained teachers to do bilingual education. And when you ask people to do things they can't or don't want to do, well, of course the outcome is never ideal. Therefore, I generally welcome the suggestion of a slowdown, particularly one that allows those who are interested and willing to do bilingual education to receive the appropriate training. At the same time, a slowdown won't solve many of the obstacles that are still there for bilingual education, such as overloaded curriculum, testing culture, and student readiness for English instruction. It will be critical to address these other issues if we truly want to reach our goals, be it in 6 or 30 years. That being said, the minister has recently made comments in regard to the challenge of student readiness. He has suggested in the future there may be opportunities for students to receive instruction by ability groups. In my mind, there are pros and cons to this suggestion. In terms of advantages, this would allow teachers to provide students with meaning-focused input and meaning-focused output opportunities catered to their current stage of bilingual development. And this would therefore limit the potential for boredom among those with high proficiency and anxiety for those at the lower end. But at the same time, there is a risk that those in lower ability groups may not be challenged to meet certain academic outcomes, and that the label of being in so-called lower group would have negative effects on students. In other words, I don't necessarily think ability groups are a bad idea, but schools will need to implement it carefully, and teacher training on differentiated learning arrangements may be required. One final suggestion the minister has made recently was to propose the use of schools' flexible curriculum for bilingual education. I am a huge proponent of this idea. One of the major concerns among teachers and professors is the impact bilingual education will have on Taiwanese students' learning in their core curriculum. It's why I and many of my colleagues are adamant that under the current approach to bilingual education, the subject's learning objectives are the priority over everything else, including language development. However, by taking this approach, there is naturally less opportunities for English exposure and need for Taiwanese students in these core classes. And exposure and need are the two key ingredients for bilingualism. This could be potentially solved if bilingual education shifts to the flexible curriculum. If schools used flexible curriculum instead of the core curriculum classes for the bilingual policy, the concern about learning loss would all but be nullified because core curriculum could return to Mandarin-only instruction. And then schools could set up, for example, a science and English class in the flexible curriculum that focuses on providing quality English exposure and need through science content. Frankly, I think there would be far less opposition to bilingual education in public schools if the flexible curriculum approach were taken. And I, for one, would fully support this change. All that being said, everything I've discussed in this video is just talk at this point. While I generally like the things I'm hearing from Minister Zheng, I will temper my enthusiasm until I see the actual changes implemented in schools. Nonetheless, there are indications that this may be the beginning of a new chapter in Taiwan's bilingual education. We'll see how this story unfolds.